Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting for Monday, April 15th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And roll call, Madam Clerk, please.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Hawbaker.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Chrisman. Here. Dunn. Here. All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if willing and able, could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. So now look for approval of the minutes for regular City Council meeting of April 1st, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Any agenda revisions, Madam Clerk?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll now move to public forum. So speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. For anything that's not on the agenda, we'll have public speaking options for those later on as well. So is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? Just name and city for the record, please.
Oh, hi. I'm Tracy Malero at 1007 Carriage Lane in Cedar Falls.
And I'm Lorelei Redfern, 427 Wild Rye Way in Cedar Falls. We'd like to thank the City Council, the Mayor, and City Administration for your support of the Community Natatorium Project. Agenda item number 19 on the resolution calendar tonight is the approval and authorization of an agreement between the City and the Enhance Iowa Board for a $400,000 community attraction and tourism grant for the Community Natatorium. Your approval of this grant agreement will bring in another $150,000 from Black Hawk County, and it's the final funding piece for the Natatorium project.
Your support of this project will enable residents in Cedar Falls and all over the Cedar Valley to participate in water recreation, and will provide a place for kids to learn to swim and lifeguards to be trained to keep our community safe. This project is tremendously popular. We have fundraised over $4.6 million, and that includes the CAT grant and the Blackhawk Gaming grant. And it also includes over 150 contributions from area individuals, businesses, and foundations.
550.
Oh, 550, sorry. When you approve the CAT agreement tonight, you will enable us to finalize this project, and heck, in less than a year, we will have a new natatorium here in Cedar Falls. So thank you for your support.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to both of you. I know how much work has gone into fundraising for this, so thank you to everything you and everyone else on the team has put in with the Booster Club to raise the money for this. So
Congratulations.
and we're going to hold you to that construction timeline, so you know. All right, anyone else for public comment, please?
Hi, my name is David Spreitzer. I live on State Street, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Question that I've got is when I call down to the local police department about the noise and the speeding going on State Street now, it's mainly because of the construction on Main Street. They're coming over to State Street, and it's mainly Friday nights and Saturday night, and the only answer I'm getting is we have plenty of officers, but the officers are downtown. And I'm wondering if anybody could maybe get out of the donut shop and start their car and drive down State Street, because that's where I was told they're at. They're down there patrolling the area in case of issues. And I'm like, there's way too much between the motorcycles. I would say if you put your little speedometer on there and check the radar, they're doing more than 20, 25 miles an hour. And between that and the noise level. And it's mainly Friday night, Saturday night. So that's all I'm asking, if they could come out and start doing something. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and city, please.
Bob Manning, Cedar Falls, Iowa.
I wanted to come before the council tonight and publicly thank the mayor for speaking at the Home Builders annual housing conference last Tuesday. It was great, the things that he said to all of the people in attendance. We had over 80 people that were developers, realtors, contractors, and interested in moving forward. And it was very inspirational to hear Danny up there talking about what's going on in Cedar Falls. Now, we've experienced that ourselves, where we're having much more interest in actually joining the Home Builder Association, but more importantly, in people that want to build one company told me that they're booked out through 2025, through March of next year. And that's just amazing, and that's very positive. And so although 2023 was a tough year, we're expecting the building to come back with a vengeance in this year. You know, we talk about interest rates, and I'll just be quick on this, but at today's current interest rates, you can borrow $100,000, 30-year fixed, with a payment of about $630 a month, plus or minus a little bit. Okay, so if you're borrowing $300,000, then that'd be 3 times that, or about $1,900. Add taxes and insurance of $400 or $500, and you're at a $2,400–2,500 monthly payment. That seems like a lot to some of us that were born back in Abe Lincoln's days, but it's something that the millennials will pay and say, yeah, that's we can handle that. We've got 2 incomes, and if you have 2 incomes, a total $102,000 or more, you can qualify for that type of a loan. But what we're seeing is it's not always the first-time buyers in Cedar Falls, it's the second-time buyers or the third-time buyers, and they have good equity in their houses because of what's happened in the last several years. And so if you have $150,000 equity coming out of the sale of your house, and you're building a $350,000 house, you own, to say only doesn't seem right, but you only have to borrow $200,000. And so that payment's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of $1,250 plus your tax and insurance. So we all need to kind of forget the interest rates and understand what the monthly payments are. That's how many people buy cars, and now people are buying houses on that premise also. So it's looking very rosy from our standpoint. We're excited what's going to happen in 2024 and have those building permit fees come in, Jennifer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and city, please, Dr. Blackwell.
I'm Michael Blackwell from Cedar Falls. 2 city council meetings ago, a statement was made extolling the quality of life realized in Cedar Falls. Needless to say, the fact of the matter is that it might be the place to raise a family for some people, but it flies in the face of the facts for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the Cedar Valley. Since 3 years after I arrived here in Cedar Falls in 1995, I decided to become increasingly involved in the community, not only because I had done so all of my adult life, but also because I was aware of the gross inequality and injustice that exists here. It's part of the warp and woof of the economic, social, and political history in the metro area, and remains so today. Sure, there have been evanescent moments when something seemed to get better, but those moments have been ostensible at best and soon forgotten. I have spoken with a couple of city councilors since May of last year and had empathetic communication with the former mayor, but that has been it. Or I've had statements by others promising conversation about the racial issues prevalent among all the components of a quality of life index in Cedar Falls, but they have not materialized. This reticence informs me that genuine concern for the structural racism and personal bigotry here does not exist. In that sense, it's business as usual that has fundamentally existed since the last quarter of the 19th century. In my opinion and experience, there is no justifiable reason for this lack of coming together and seeking to address and redress the plight of BIPOC people here. And because of the small numbers of them who feel and are in fact unwelcome here, there is the excuse that those people have not the critical mass to compel the city government and the majority of the people to make substantive changes and to eliminate the pernicious evil of our racist culture. I spent 20 years at the University of Northern Iowa as Director for Multicultural Education. When I arrived, there was a source of scarcely enough money to buy paper for the department. I fought tooth and nail to increase our supplies and services budget, as well as to receive program dollars from various entities that other departments had long received. The self-evident marginalization of the Center for Multicultural Education was symptomatic of the racial ignorance that was lock-stitched in the fabric of the institution and the surrounding community. This racist culture was replicated in the larger society. I got intricately involved in the boards of nonprofit civil rights and social services organizations. Today, we fight for freedom in foreign lands while we continue to disenfranchise and oppress categories of people on the domestic front. However, I am not convinced that I must do nothing and hope that I'll get into heaven somehow. Oh no. As long as I have working lungs and the cores of my memory lengthen, I will seek to act in accordance with Amos's divine command to let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And the admonition of Paul to the Romans to let love be genuine, hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good. White backlash is evil. Lying is evil. Saying one cares and doing nothing is evil. Prohibiting people from enjoying the fruits of democracy is evil. It is way overdue to eliminate the structures, policies, processes, and services that dehumanize other human beings right here in Cedar Falls. The urgency is now, for we have a lot to do. It won't be easy, but doing good is much more rewarding and humane, godly, if you will, than maintaining the dastardliness and despicable cowardice of racism. So I hope in the not-too-distant future, conversations will be made. I am actually skilled at these kinds of things to try to eliminate racial discrimination in our society, but I have not been tapped to help out in any kind of way. And all these overtures to say that they're going to communicate with me have gone unfulfilled. So I hope that will change in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Blackwell. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Yes, no.
Thank you. I just wanted to, before, I know we were about to end public comment, but because this is my last meeting with you all, I just wanted to give my thanks. I think almost 2 years ago, I started as the student liaison, and it's been a wonderful learning experience for me to be here, to see how the city does its business, to get to know each and every one of you, the incredible staff who are the reason we live in a good community, and letting me come and talk about what's important to the students that I'm talking to. Talking about College Hill, ask questions about diversity and safety and all kinds of things, and I've just had a wonderful time and learned a lot, and I thank you all for your kindness, and seeing community members that come up and talk about things that are important to them as well. Just very good to see how the city operates and the business that's done. And the other thing I want to say is I hope you'll continue to think of students when you make decisions. They're such a big part of this community. The university is such a big part of this community. And, it's such a unique environment when you walk onto campus, as I'm sure all of you know. And so I just urge you not to forget about those students when you make decisions, to talk to them, to afford the same kindness to my successor as you did to me, and to continue to ask questions and be engaged with our university and its students. It's such an important piece of the community, and keeping them here and growing their families here and starting businesses here. So I thank you for your time, and thank you again for letting me be the liaison for the last 2 terms. Appreciate it.
Stand on quick, because I believe you have to. I believe you have to head out early. You might not be able to stick around until the end, so I just want to say thank you. Just my 4 months, I've been just about 4 months, 3.5. You've been an amazing outreach with students and just actually being participatory in the conversations, talking to the students, getting their feedback. So just thank you for everything you've done. And as a resident, having watched, it was always nice to know that you were here bringing that student voice to the council. And I don't know if any council members want to say anything, knowing Noah might have to leave.
Thanks.
I'll say something. I wish Noah would stay here, but he's going to fly away to D.C., right, Noah? Is that where you're going? You don't know?
I have another opportunity lined up.
Okay, well,
I get to go out to DC.
He's flying out of here. So we were glad to have him. He's been a great advocate, not only on the city the student liaison side of it, but Noah's been down in Des Moines advocating, like daily for young folks and students. So I'm very proud to know you, and I wish you would stay, but I wish you well.
Anyone else for council? Go for it, Gil.
Yeah, I thought Kelly was going to cry for a second. I'm in the same, as you know, I'm going to miss my roommate over here, and good luck. You're got a fantastic future, and you know you would. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, and then one last check. Anyone else for public comment? Just name and city, please.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Kim Johnson-Jordan, and I appreciate the opportunity to step forward again and talk again about our nice historic building that we have at 515 College Street. A great source of community in that historic area, and it's something that I think that as we look forward in all of our decision makings when we come to Cedar Falls, and I appreciate Noah's input as well, because I see the growth of the community really hinging on what we do with our schools and also our healthcare system. And the money that we put forward into that always comes back trifold. Years ago, when we as a community decided to break apart our privately owned hospital, it was in 96, 97, we were taking interest money from that and we were adding it back into maintenance updates and programs. We had involvement from college students. We had involvement from business people, school teachers, lawyers, realtors, and bankers. It was really nice that Bob kind of brought up the interest rates. And when you put money into something, the appreciation goes up. When you do nothing, the repairs come over and over more expensive than what they really should have been in the first place. And looking forward to the future and the growth that we have an opportunity to have, I'm hoping that there can be a collaboration to find out a little bit more about what that February 5th meeting with the lease agreement kind of between Covenant, Wheaton, Mercy One, and Trinity really means for healthcare within Cedar Falls. If we're thinking of healthcare as a hospital, a primary location that's on the map, that when you do a compass radius around it, it includes surrounding communities. Those are the people that are bringing their lives to our community to work, to help grow our community and to flourish development that we're expecting to vote and go on to with our daily lives. Infrastructure is always critical, and I know there's been super conversations about our sewer plant, and in my mind, I think healthcare is replacing the old, working towards the new, and I could be really wrong on that, but I'm trying to imagine a 6'6" culvert coming down towards our community downtown, going into 6 to 8 inches. And if we're dreaming really large, which I have a huge dream for Cedar Falls to really get and be able to have public choice, have surrounding communities choose the next healthcare that the city council would vote on to sit at 515 College Street. Not just take Mercy One's recommendation that they're just not able to fund and needing to separate and maybe go into Trinity Healthcare. It's such a vital part to our community, and I think it's understated, and it's really not something that's usually brought before City Council, but we're also thinking about doing it for low-income housing, where we're wanting to go out and make, again, interest rates that accrue and come back to the city, and we gave that away with our hospital. Healthcare is probably the #1 huge moneymaker for this area. It's also what we should hang our hat on and say, we are not asking of other people. We expect to have the competition. In fact, we want competition. Dreaming big, if Mayo Clinic was once on the table, and it was, I want to reach out again to Mayo Clinic, have a group of people like Noah, because we have a president that's sitting up at the UNI office right now that has started a nursing program. And unlike Price Lab, when we decided as a city to disband that building and take away level 1 and level 2 instruction, it was a detriment to the cause and effect of our growth in this community. It's also affected how we're now going to be funding and taking into our hands the reconstruction of the College Hill. So if it's a 30-minute walk, which it is because I've walked it, from UNI to Sartori, 515 College Street, in a 55-minute period, those parents bringing their child to Cedar Falls to go into nursing or back into education could easily walk, bike, get the Met Transit, have very little car insurance, although most kids are going to come here with a car, and money to spend. So they're also going to have injuries. And we should never have to say that this location at 515, set aside from all of the new development, because our city is 40,000 people. And I just want to think bigger than currently where we're at and really focus on the maintenance schedule and look at what we're going to be putting and funding yearly. We don't have that little nest egg anymore that was drawing, and possibly can we get something like that back if something new is entertained. I would also like to ask that it be people of many ranges, people that have zero money to profit from asking a new entity to come in, and then at that point bring it to council and let you go through your council meetings and whatever else. And I really do appreciate the way that the city can run. I just want it to be a lot better for all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Do we have anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to staff updates.
No staff updates this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, Administrator Gaines. And move on to special order of business. So item number 2, we have a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget for the city of Cedar Falls. We have a motion to receive and file proof of publication for notice of hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motion and seconded. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And then we have staff comments from Director Rodenbeck.
Sure. Mayor, tonight's the public hearing for the FY25 budget. As you and the council are aware, the budget can be kind of a long process. 2 weeks ago on April 1st, council had a special meeting where they spent some time going through the budget. May recall that there were 5 amendments that the council considered to the budget, and 2 of them passed. And so with those changes incorporated, the proposed budget that's before you tonight reduced the rate from $11.93 that was proposed down to $11.86. And so the new budget forms with that $11.86 rate was in your packet. And then once the budget, or if it's approved tonight, the budget, then it'll be filed with the county and the state of Iowa by the deadline of April 30th. And the full document will be updated with the new and approved rate and available on the city's website.
Thank you, Jen. And we'll open it up for any public comments on this item. All right, seeing none, I'll look for a resolution approving and adopting the fiscal year 2025 budget for the city of Cedar Falls.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion is seconded, and we will open it up for council discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cruz.
I guess it's a foregone conclusion that this will go through, obviously, but echoing some of the things I've said in the past, I'd like to see more transparency on the income side of the equation. I've talked about the hotel motel tax excesses, and I know we do projected budgets with estimates and whatnot. We won't know the fiscal year 24's final numbers on any of the budget items that we projected, but we could look back at fiscal 23 and say, well, we had extra there, where did it go? I mean, it should be accounted for. I'd like to see more transparency in the cash flow, especially in the income. The expense side, we got our CIP, it's published. You can see where the money goes, where we're spending. We slice and dice which projects we want to continue with, which ones we don't. But I know, Mr. Mayor, we talked a little bit about the TIF. TIF is a nebulous cloud in the sky, as many people don't understand it. And it's promoted as a way to generate future revenue, property tax. And when it gets to the point to do so, it should be going into the general fund, and it seems to get siphoned off into other things, more economic development, but it's a squirrel in a cage. We don't get to see it. The citizens don't get to see it quite as much as I feel is there. So that's what concerns me, and I've said that before. So,
If I may, just a few things there. Just for the TIF, I know, because we did talk about that. For this year's budget, I know there was one of the TIFs that expired, the 1.3 million. So in this year's budget, we have 900,000 of that is being released. It's not released. At this point, it's just tax revenue. 900,000 of that is just going to the general fund, general operational costs, and then we have 400,000 budgeted for economic development. So it's not a special release or anything. It's just we have a line item for economic development for 400,000. So I just wanted to clarify on that funding piece of, I feel like just from having looked at the budget, that's clearly laid out in there. And then I believe just on the, talking about the surplus from previous years, that is just, I talked with staff this morning, really it is just going to the next year's capital improvement plan, so we're using that to fund capital improvement projects. So can you just speak to that quick, Jen, just on that mechanism?
Sure. Every year, two things. You'll see in the CIP, you'll see that general fund savings acronym is one of the funding sources. So when a year's over, council also, we come to council and have a resolution showing, okay, we have this much excess for the year. Here's a resolution saying we want to do X, whether it's help the health insurance fund, whether it's save it for a project, or we want it to go fund those projects listed in the CIP with general fund savings. So I guess I'm not sure about the comment about transparency on that, because that's right in the CIP that people can see where that savings is going to, let alone seeing the projects it's funded, the public safety building and city hall and now the pool and all of those. So, but that does come before council to determine where that excess should go every year, and they vote on that. And then if it is for savings, then in projects, it's in the CIP.
And what's the item called in the CIP? The
General fund savings, so it's GFS is right in there.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Councilwoman Dunn.
Director Rodenbeck, can you remind just kind of a overview of what has that savings been these last? I feel like is some of it not filled positions and like.
Correct. I would say, unfortunately, a lot of times what the savings is from positions that haven't been filled. We've had vacant positions, whether it's engineering, whether it's police, or it's that turnover, that happens. And so that does oftentimes have some savings at the end, because of course when we budget for the positions being filled. And so when they're not, there's savings. And I think as council knows too, that's why in goal setting, we kind of talk about that policy and have the council kind of consensus about that policy to use it for capital, because we know that that may not happen every year, so we don't want to use it and use for ongoing expenses. So the thought is, let's do it for one-time capital projects. So that's been a policy that the council's talked about in all the goal-setting sessions.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's not really profit. It's in an ideal world, we'd want to have our staff fully staffed. So it's not really something that I'm necessarily proud of that we've, I mean, I guess saving money is great, but I'd rather have us fully staffed. I know that I know it's important that we pass the budget. I know we've had a lot of great conversation here. I do want to caution us, I do not think we should violate policies that councils previously who've put us in a really enviable spot. We should not plan on the, because Jen, in a perfect world, what if that money wasn't there? Where would we be pulling from?
Correct. We'd probably be looking at reserves, or we'd probably come to council and say, okay, this is what we're short this year. What might we have to levy for next year to make up for that? But most of the time it would come from reserves, and we would obviously let council know that's what we have, which is one of the reasons why we also want to keep strong reserves as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to, I know we need to pass the budget, but I don't like that we're violating our own policy to do so. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I wanted to, first of all, thank staff, especially Director Rodenbeck, for taking the time to put this together. As a new council member, we attend some courses that are given to lots of people who are parts of city government, and come to find out there are many cities in Iowa that do not have the same wonderful finance department that we have. We have had the budget explained to us no less than 5 times thus far, including the times that the public is able to hear, but many other times just so that we can have a firm understanding of what it is that we are passing, because we understand that this affects all of you every day. So we want to make sure we're making the best decisions for our community that we can with all of the information that we have available to us. So I also would like to echo what Kelly said. We set policies, which I'm not sure many folks realize, but those policies try to help guide us to make these decisions. They're why we set the budget the way that we do, to try to make Cedar Falls the best possible community, and obviously that relies on financial decisions. So I would encourage anyone who has questions or who is concerned. Obviously what we're doing tonight is kind of closing the door on this current chapter, but in the future, you can reach out to any of us, and we may very well pass you right on to Director Rodenbeck, because she is great at explaining this, and some of us are not. So, there is ample opportunity for you to give your input, to tell us what is important to you, how this affects your bottom line. Unfortunately, we're sitting up here and having this conversation, and we haven't heard any public comment. So, we are doing our best to reach out to you to try to get that information, but you can always come to us. You can always come during public comment. So please stay involved, because again, this is affecting you every day. So we tried our best, but we have to hear from you to know what you want.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Councilman Ganfield.
I think I'd like to say I couldn't agree with Ms. Chrisman more. That's very well stated. So you can pass them on to Jennifer if you want, but I think Hannah's got your answers if you need some. One thing that we have talked about in the past couple of years, I actually reached out to Administrator Gaines a couple years ago and said, hey, what if the council told you we need to cut 11% across the board? What would you do? And I believe I'm quoting this properly. The answer was, well, who do you want to fire, or what services do you want to cut? And as I talked with Councilman Harding and Councilmember Dunn, that is kind of the situation we find ourselves in, because our tax rate is low. We run pretty lean. There really aren't that many extravagant expenditures, even though we do find ourselves with some general fund savings from time to time to dedicate towards projects as the council directs. We don't have a whole lot of room to cut. Nonetheless, I'd love to save money just like many of you would, and I look at our budget like I do as a homeowner. There's a lovely project I'd love to do in my backyard this year, but in light of our current economy, we just have to nix that from the opportunity. My only hesitancy really with this budget is that we've got a lot of extra money on, let's not call them pet projects, but extras in this economy that's really, really struggling for most people. And so I kind of want to see even more clawed back. I don't love sitting there and quibbling over 5 cents here and 10 cents there. I think we did a fair amount of that. I'd still like to see us be able to trim the budget, because as I look at some of our line items, there's a trend happening over the last few years. And I know that's across the board. It's not just here in Cedar Falls, and we are still in an enviable place compared to many other cities. But I'd like to see us trim that trend next year. So as we, again, close the chapter on this portion, I'd like to see us look towards next year and see where else are there opportunities so that we can maintain the quality of life in Cedar Falls and have it be a great place to live, but also not spend the X millions that we've added in the last few years. So I think, like Hannah said, or Ms. Chrisman said, we have not heard from a lot of people, which actually shocks me. I would have assumed we'd heard from more people. The folks that I have heard from are resistant to budget increases, as many of you probably would be, but I understand that you might not want to speak up at this portion. So please, in advance of next year, stay involved, stay engaged, do your homework, and make sure you get involved early on, because this is a transparent process through the CIP, though it is a lot to digest if you only show up to the meetings. If you want to see something happen differently, be involved.
You can only print so many of those big books without having to discuss the budget about printing.
I'm not sharing.
Anyone else for discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schultz first.
So just to reiterate what Dustin was just saying, that's going to be something we want to look at very carefully next year when we look at 3 positions that we're adding: the grant, the land acquisition, and the pool supervisor, that we don't backfill those with 3 new positions next year saying, okay, that was a one-time expense. So we are lean and we are very fiscally responsible, but this year I understand, and we look to save by having those positions. So hopefully we are making the correct decision on the information we have at the time that we make those decisions. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would echo what's already been previously stated. We are in a very enviable position in this community where the immense amount of work that our finance department is putting in. So again, lots of kudos to Jen and her team. It's impressive as a first time going through this budget process to see the amount of detail that not only is going into this, but the amount of time you're having to expend to explain it to all of us who are looking at it for the first time. So I do appreciate that. The point that Councilman Ganfield made is well taken. We do have some opportunity perhaps, but I do think we should also focus on the potential ROI on some of those positions that we are looking at. I understand that in a perfect world, we maybe wouldn't have an overlap on some things, or we wouldn't have to maybe bring in a grant writer because we maybe would have those resources here internally. But the fact of the matter is right now we don't, and the economy is, as you alluded to, as it is. So I think we need to take advantage of the opportunity right now. We've got some projects coming up that we are going to need some substantial funding from, and we don't have it right now. So I think in particular that grant writing position is instrumental for us moving forward. So again, thanks to Jen and her team, and look forward to moving this on to the next stage.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Well, what more can be said? I agree. The staff and Director Rodenbeck, the budget that's presented to us, especially the people who are new to council, they simplify complex matters for us. I encourage you, if you didn't look at or listen to the discussions where more of these, the effects of the rollbacks were explained to us and how it impacts the city's ability to generate revenue to cover what we take for granted. A lot of the changes we're having to make are related to that. I also agree with Councilmember Dunn. The hesitation I have is this sort of a one-time deal of transferring some savings to get a tick down on some of the tax rate that we have this year. if you look at the budget, the practices that we have in place are amazing, and they have served us well for a lot of years. We budget and assume the worst as far as revenues are concerned. And so we are very conservative when we think what might be coming in, so that we're always in a position to be on sound footing. I agree with Councilman Lotta that our city is in great shape relative to other cities. My concern is for the future, though, that we get back to maintaining those practices, putting extra money saved into the CIP that will better serve us in the long run. I do think it is poor budgeting and poor planning to have a short-term gain and sacrifice those longer-term goals that the city's had all these many years. So overall, I'm happy with the budget. There has been a lot of work that's gone into it.
Thank you, Councilmember Hawbaker.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure we're all still on the same page. So because I want to make sure we have the discussion, and it's not, what's in front of us is not the final until we say it's the final. So I'd like to make a amendment, I assume is what it would be.
Or continue, and we'll see if it needs to be an amendment, or
What's that?
continue with what.
Okay, well, I would like to propose that we do away with the change of taking the one-time savings, which, how should I say that, Jen?
100,000, I think, that you guys talked about last time. I think what you're saying is not to use the savings and just the rate would go back up. The rate would go up then to $11.91. It was $11.93. We cut 50,000 of the housing conversion last time that was discussed, and the 100,000. But if you would put that back in, then it would be $11.91.
Because I am so hesitant of that violation of our policy that has served us so well. So just to make sure we're all still on the same page, I would like to make the amendment,
The motion.
the motion for amendment, to not use the $100,000 one-time savings draw and put the budget back as it had been previously.
And just to clarify, then you'd be looking to approve the budget at the 1191. Is that correct, Jen? Of adding the 100,000 back in?
Yes, yes. Because when we left it last time, we wanted to make it very clear to folks that it, it's not what it is until it is what it is.
Yep.
So just to make sure we're still on that same page, and maybe we are, but I'd like to have that discussion.
I'll just clarify for everyone, there is currently a motion on the table to amend the approval of the budget, which was at 1186, to now approve it at 1191, which would be adding the 100,000 back in that we had decided to use from the surplus savings from previous year. So looking for a second on that.
Second.
And that's been motioned and seconded. So then open that amendment up for discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Gamble.
I think that was the whole point of the previous meeting, to make sure that we came to a consensus, that we wouldn't have people making amendments on the fly this evening, because these are complicated numbers. So having just had that discussion about removing that portion or moving that portion in the budget at our previous meeting, to come to the numbers that were published to the public tonight, and hearing no public comment about this budget as is, I would request that we remove that motion.
And look to just stick with the original budget as proposed, well, the original proposed tonight, the 1186.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cruz.
I echo what Mr. Ganfield said. I'm looking at our CIP budget of $87,733,000 and change. The 100,000 is, I guess, earned by the citizens through previous property tax paid. I think it should be returned to them, you might say as a favor, if you want to call it that. I think we're fine with our previous discussion from our last council meeting. I would be against that idea because it was well vetted already. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we're allowed to use the word favors up here. Any other discussion on the proposed amendment to the budget to approve it at the 1191 of putting the 100,000 back? I see a lot of faces with thinking thoughts, so I'm holding for a second.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I can appreciate where Councilman Dunn and Chrisman are coming from on, but that was what we had talked about, of really having the in-depth discussions on coming up with these decisions and not then changing and coming up with changes as we go. So I would not be in favor of it myself either for that same reason, and not for the reason that I don't think it'd be well managed by the city on that 100,000, and you know, I think it was a nickel for every 100,000, but that was the decision that we made.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hoppaker?
Yeah, thank you. I take Councilmember Dunn's point, and I understand what you're saying, and a big part of me agrees with it. But I also think Councilmember Ganfield, the public notice, and it did appear that we're just here to discuss it and get some input. I do think there's an opportunity for change. I do think that that's possible. I'm a little bit concerned about how notice would play out for the public. The way I think about it, and the way I can live with it within this budget and still sort of tacitly adhere to those policies, is that the overlap of the aquatic instructor, which is roughly, or supervisor is roughly 100,000, one and done. And so this transfer would go to that, which is, in spirit, I suppose, the reason for that policy. And so that's how I can justify sticking with the budget as it is.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Councilmember Lather.
Councilmember Hallbaker hit the nail right on the head, and that's where I was at with this as well. And my votes from last meeting would reflect that as well. That's really where my head was at. I guess I understand where Ms. Dunn's coming from with this. I do. But having heard no public comment in any phase of this, and the fact that we already had the notice go out, I'm inclined to say let's use that 100,000 so that Mike can get his position filled, and let's that position has been debated probably ad nauseum for long enough on this now. So if we can say that will make us all sleep better and we can get that position filled too, then I think that's the right thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Lather. So we currently have that proposal on the floor, and we'll move to vote. We will open it up for any public comment on that proposed change of doing it at the 1191 instead of the 1186. If there's any public comment for that amendment. All right, seeing none, we will move to a vote then to look at approving at the 1191 versus the 1196. This will be a voice vote, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
And that motion does not carry, which takes us back to the original approved budget, excuse me, not approved budget, proposed budget at the 1186. So any additional conversation for the 1186 budget? All right, seeing none, then we will look to, I believe we will need a roll call vote for this, please.
Six voting aye, one voting nay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion does pass. And we will now close the public hearing for that item, and we will be moving on to item number 3, public hearing on the proposed plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Orchard Hill Pickleball Court Expansion Project. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication? Those
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Any written communications, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
All right, and then we have staff presentation from David Wicke. Thank you, David.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight's public hearing is on the Orchard Hill Pickleball Court Expansion Project. This is a new project that will see significant upgrades to Orchard Hill Park. The current park houses 8 public pickleball courts, a public bathroom, open grass field, baseball field, a new shelter, and an existing parking lot with access off of Primrose Drive. With the growth of pickleball and the very active pickleball club that we have in town here, this park is showing both the desire and the need for improved amenities. The existing parking lot is dated and has an unclear layout. It can hold a little over 50 vehicles before users will start driving into the grassy areas for additional parking. The aim of this project is to significantly increase the amount of available parking, add 8 new additional pickleball courts to the site, and the plan is to remove most of the existing asphalt seal coat driveway and a portion of the existing seal coat parking lot, reconstruct a larger parking lot, a wider drive entrance into the park with curb and gutter and a full depth asphalt section on that drive. A significant portion of the existing parking lot will have a surface leveled course with asphalt leveling, followed by an asphalt overlay. Updated park will better accommodate two-way traffic with entrance drive being widened, and it'll provide a total of 108 parking spots. The asphalt pad for the 8 new pickleball courts will be installed to the west of the 8 existing courts, and the new shelter and will be centered between the existing pickleball courts and the new courts. This new pickleball court will sit approximately where the former tennis courts were at. If you recall where the tennis courts had previously existed at the park, that's the location where the new pickleball courts will be. After the courts are constructed, they'll get a new fence that will go around them, and new netting will be installed, and surface coatings will be applied to the courts. Additional work at the park will be the addition of stormwater for the new courts and larger parking lot. The stormwater will be directed to the new stormwater detention basin that will be located along the west edge of the park next to the new courts. The basin will be able to store the 100-year rain event and will release the stormwater at a 2-year release rate. So this is going to provide some stormwater management to the park, which previously really didn't have a good stormwater management. Coordination has been made with Orchard Hill Elementary School and the city to allow the use of the school lots during the summer break to allow access to the existing courts, the baseball fields, and the rest of the park while planned construction is going on at the new courts and the parking lot. We expect to see construction beginning early June. The project is planned to wrap up before school is back in session in the middle of August. The total estimated cost of construction for this project is $489,469.50. Project will be funded by the general obligation bond, cell tower lease, general fund saving, and private contributions. That's all I have. Mr. Sopi and myself are available for questions. Thanks.
Thank you, David. And then we will now open it up to public comments on this item. Got one already walking her way up. Just name and city for the record, please.
Kathy Oakland, 1811 Primrose Drive, Cedar Falls. I have my script right here if you want a copy. I thought about handing them out ahead of time, but I've been a teacher most of my life, and I assume most of you would not pay attention to me. So put your cell phones away, please. My 5 minutes will start now. Pickleball noise and respecting our neighbors. Primrose Drive, 1621, 1707, 1715, 1723, 1801, and 1811. These are not just numbers. These are the addresses of people's homes on Primrose Drive. These are the homes that back up to the Orchard Hill Pickleball Park. Most of us have lived there for decades. The major downsides of pickleball are the noise and traffic factors. Noise from pickleball courts is driving the neighbors crazy. You can take notes if you want to. Noise pollution. Homeowners do not want to fight pickleball courts in the courts of law. Keeping the balance between players enjoying the game and not upsetting nearby residents is an issue that needs to be taken seriously. One way to solve the problem is with careful city planning. There was an informational meeting last summer, but our concerns have not been discussed for over a year. We did not call the new plans improvements Build them in your backyard, Dustin. Increasing from 8 to 16 courts in the same area is a significant increase in loudness. Would that be annoying? Probably. Has a noise study been conducted? What are the results? 2 factors of noise are the high pitch of the hard paddle slamming a plastic ball and the rhythm of the smacks. Pickleball sounds heard outside the courts are mostly the results of the ball hitting the paddle. Using quieter balls and paddles available can cut the sound in half. Courts are expected to get lots of use, but should not be located close to homes. Increase the distance of courts to homes, then life gets better. Barriers can help as well. Restricting play hours can help reduce complaints. Homeowners cannot sit outside in the evenings. We cannot open our windows. So please do not add lights. Restrict the hours. There is a rumor that the new pickleball courts will be lighted for night play. Wonderful. We're so happy. Now we have lights to deal with. Barriers can be absorbing and reflecting. Sound reflecting barriers, that they might send the pickleball towards the court or perhaps other homes. The solution might be a roof. The sound is annoying. During construction this summer, parking is encouraged at Orchard Hill School. Please keep parked cars off of Primrose Drive. Otherwise, people are going to park there, cut through our backyards, and climb the fence. We do not have 108 stalls on Primrose Drive. For residents living near pickleball court, it has not been fun and games. Who knows what's going to happen to our property values? One resident wanted to sell their home and turn it into a pickleball club. Another resident looked at an acreage to move to. Couldn't afford to move. It stinks that we get these homes to retire and now it's all ruined by this. There are 10 ways to reduce pickleball noise. 1, use quieter paddles. 2, use foam balls. 3, use acoustic defense soundproofing. 4, plan courts mindfully. Oops, too late. 5, regulate the hours of play, please. Add a natural tree barrier, build a wall. Create court rules and restrictions, posted and enforced. 9, install parking rules for both summer and the future. And 10, please get the local residents involved in the decision making. People within a 2-block radii can hear the balls bouncing. Since 8 pickleball courts can fit into the space of 2 tennis courts, there could be 32 people. 1 minute left. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Jump to the bottom. Perhaps the next council meeting should be held at Orchard Hill Pickleball Park. I'm sure you would be distracted and would not get anything done. In conclusion, pickleball noise is a challenge. It's impossible to eliminate the noise, but I tell you this, we have names. 1621, the Ubens. 1707, Keith and Kim Larson. 1715, Eunice and Galen Hutchins. 1723, Brian and Brenda Bonner. 1801, new resident. 1811, Kathy and Merle Oakland. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item?
Yes, my name's Keith Larson, 1707 Primrose Drive. My family moved to Cedar Falls back in 1959, and our house was being built on Oregon Road. And in the meantime, they had to send us to Orchard Hill School while Valley Park was being built. So when I started Orchard Hill School, there was nothing but cornfield to the south all the way to Hudson, nothing but cornfield probably to Dike. And now it's all enclosed. All we saw when I was at school was there was this old farmstead that ran between Orchard Drive and where Green Hill is now, and we thought it was haunted. And anyway, so fast forward, ended up at on Oregon Road, and Southdale was built, but down the road, I ended up buying the house over there on Primrose, and it was just a quiet park, a few baseball games where I played when I was a kid, and then about 2015, I heard this strange noise out in my backyard, and it was an older gentleman named John. He's pretty much the one responsible for starting this whole thing. And I walked over there trying to figure out what game he was playing, and he gave me a paddle, and he was just out there practicing serving by himself. He gave me a paddle, and I thought it was it was a lot of fun. It was easy to learn, and so I played off and on. I still do. I wish that sport would have showed up about 20 years ago. But anyway, when they wanted to expand this pickleball court, I was in favor of that, but nobody listened to my suggestions about moving it to the south where there's 1,000 feet to the south. But instead, everything's coming up against Primrose Drive. I had, now I'm going to have parking spots right up against the fence across my backyard. And I'm not very happy about that. But anyway, I'm all for the sport and making it better. I got grandkids that I started playing with. I'm actually a member of the club, and I love playing it. I just wish I could do it more, but nobody seemed to listen to any input from the people that actually live there and have to watch all this happen. Used to be a half a dozen cars a day might come back and forth to that park, and today there was a ball game going on. And between that and the pickleball, there must have been 100 cars coming and going. And anyway, I wish something else would have been considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Name and city, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Kisher Larson. I'm married to that guy. Live on the corner of McLean, where the alley enters into the park, and have been there over 35 years and been very happy there to call that home. I prepared a statement so I wouldn't forget anything or say anything I regretted later. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this. My comments for the council this evening. I had corresponded with Mike Sopp after the informational meeting on May 12th, 2023. While I did not feel my concerns were addressed in full, I didn't pursue it further. We live on the alley that continues from McLean Street leading into Orchard Hill Park. We were not made aware of the plans to widen the alley from 1 lane to 2 until receiving the Currents magazine sent out just recently. We then received an official letter from the City Department of Community Development written on April 5th and received on or about April 9th. That was going into a weekend, so it was several days before that mail was received. We didn't receive that letter regarding the expansion plan for Orchard Hill Park until just last week, basically. This letter indicated additional information that was not originally included in the informational meeting on May 12th, 2023, or in my email correspondence with Mr. Sopp on June 1st, 2023. The letter included a drawing of the proposed changes to the entrance to the park and additional parking lot directly behind us. Excuse me. We are now with the understanding that our yard will be reduced by several feet in order to widen the drive, the alley that is now one way in, one way out, vehicles alternating respectfully, which keeps their speed limit down. Now it's going to be widened to 2 lanes going in and out simultaneously, which will increase the speed. We live there, we see it all the time, and I just want to add my comments about why I disagree with this plan. Diminished value of our property and every single homeowner on Primrose Drive. Additional traffic going 2 directions instead of alternating cars with 1 lane as before. This will make it difficult for children riding bicycles and families or individuals walking to the park safely. Access to our driveway at 1707 Primrose Drive and our neighbor's driveway at 1621 Primrose Drive, the Ubens, will be adversely affected by this traffic flow. The parking lot will be directly behind our yard, which will cause headlights in our windows in the evenings. Removal of the grassy area and mature trees will further affect us. We don't know if that large mature tree behind the fence in our yard is going to be removed. They just removed a very large mature tree further into the park. I can't see for any reason removing mature, healthy trees. Even though they're going to add more, plant more, they're not mature trees that provide ample shade. Is that tree going to be removed? We don't know. It does provide considerable shade to our home. As I indicated to Mr. Sopp when expressing my concerns last June 1st of 2023, I don't believe that covering grassy areas with concrete is an effective use of this area. Additional pickleball courts catering to a certain demographic do not appeal to all park users. Even though my husband and grandchild are very actively involved with pickleball, I support that. I don't believe that taking away a tennis court and basketball hoop supports all park users. We frequently see children and families go to play ball at the park only to find the basketball court and tennis courts have been removed. Plans for this were already in place prior to the informational meeting last year, and major changes had already occurred without input from the neighborhood. We do not feel this has happened with earnest consideration of the neighbors that this plan affects. I thank you for your time and attention this evening, and I think that I will, without being redundant, support Kathy Oakland in her comments that come over and sit in the backyard and listen to the noise. I'm busy working all the time, so I don't really hear it myself, but I trust that my neighbors are experiencing this. So, and I would just ask that more consideration be given to the community for feedback prior to making plans that affect us all. We were not aware of this, and especially the widening of the drive. I'm very disheartened by that. You want me to stay for a minute, or you want me to go ahead?
You can go ahead, unless you have anything else you want.
No, I don't have anything else to add, and I hope I didn't exceed my 5 minutes.
Okay, it's all good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kisher-Larson. Anyone else? Just name and city, please.
Lori Newbro of Cedar Falls. Did you hear that? Sorry. I'm not nearly as organized as a teacher was, because I was not a teacher. I just got some random notes here. I live at 320 Mary Hill Drive, which is directly behind the new courts. Since there's no measurements on here, you can't really tell how far it is. But from what I can gather from Google Maps, it's about 150 feet. If you look at anything about pickleball noise, you'll see that by any standards, that's way too close. My bedroom was on that back upper. So I won't be surprised if I can hear this noise through windows. So that means I'll be relegated to sleeping between, at 10 o'clock at night in the summer and 7 a.m. every single day. I've tried to look at noise ordinance stuff for the city of Cedar Falls, and it's really not easy to find. It doesn't talk a lot about decibels. One thing I saw was that they take into consideration the proximity to residential sleeping, which I think my bedroom would qualify as pretty close, and also whether the sound is recurring, intermittent, or constant. This noise is constant. Even where I live, I can hear the noise from the pickleball courts that are up farther on Primrose. Can hear talking, the hoots and hollers, which is fine. I have nothing against pickleball. If I hadn't just had my knee replaced, I probably would be playing pickleball. But I can't have it behind my house, virtually in my backyard, with people playing whenever it's nice out. Any day that you would think to open your window, they'll be playing pickleball. If it's nice on Christmas Day, they'll be playing pickleball. So, yeah, when do I get a respite from this? When do you get any enjoyment of your backyard? I'm also concerned about this water retention thing. So that was news to me when I first got this. Is it, I need to know if it's open. Is there going to be open water back there, or is it just, does it fill up when it rains? I'm not sure how that will work. I know that you talked about making this a great place for everyone to live. I think the fact that we built a soccer complex outside of town, basically, the skate park was put far away from homes because it's noisy and people didn't want that, kind of shows that those things were thought of for that, and I don't understand why they're not being thought of for the pickleball. So I guess the last thing I want to say is that just no matter how you spin this, this is good for pickleball players. It's great. Like I said, I have nothing against pickleball, but this is the wrong place for it, especially cramming it all into one end of the park and it being so close to me. And I live with my elderly father. He's the homeowner. He's lived there for 60 years. In fact, less than 5 years ago, we got a letter from the city, or he did that, said that he needed to improve the house. So I'm worried about the value of the home, and mainly because he just put, thousands of dollars into the house, getting it sided at the behest of the city, and now we're doing this. So I just feel like everybody else put my input in. The things that came out of it were noise and traffic, and as far as I can tell, very little is being done for either one of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newbrough. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and city, please.
My name is Mark Rhodes, 2603 Pleasant Drive. I'm here to speak in favor of the project. I'm a member in the club also like Keith, and I know Keith and Kathy Oakland, some of the others that have spoke here. We do have an advisory board for the club, and we do try to address issues and try and be good neighbors. I understand there is a problem with the noise. We do try and address it. We've spoken with Mike Soppy with the city. We work with Brian Heath with the city and Kevin Cross, talk with these people. We had looked into possibilities of I'll call it a plexiglass enclosure around the court, similar to like you would see at a hockey game. They are developing newer products to try and address the sound issue. They are making paddles now that will, for lack of a better description, it's like a felt paddle that helps with the noise. There is differences in balls. Things are evolving in the sport. Several of us on the advisory board went around to visit some of the other towns around. We went to Dyke to see their complex. We went to Parkersburg to view theirs. Both of theirs are newer developed destinations for more than just one sport. Dyke has a water pad. They have softball diamonds, baseball diamonds, pickleball. They have shuffleboard. They have all kinds of things in one location. Parkersburg is real similar to that. We're stuck in Cedar Falls in that the parks that you're trying to put these things are within communities. We don't have a destination. It was brought up like the soccer complex. I'm not sure that the city was involved in that. I thought that was private. That was kind of a different development. We want to be good neighbors. We hope there's ways we can address noise issues. We'd always thought there was plans to plant trees along the neighbors' backyards in the parks to try and absorb some of the noise, some of those things. We have found out of a product that will absorb sound. It was brought to us by Envision, is an architectural firm in Waterloo. And it was a product that they were checking out that they use like an interior walls for like an air compressor is going to be in a building. They wanted to mitigate that noise. They got that to us here just recently, and there are some other things that we want to do to try and address the noise issues. I would say The light issue, there's no plans at this point to do lights. I think people from the neighborhood are thinking of the old lights that they used to have on those old tennis courts. And they were a big dome that shined very far away. I would invite people to go to the UNI courts, where they have the new courts, the tennis courts. The new lighting systems is so much different. We have had somebody actually draw up a plan, and they can tell you how much light is on every square yard or square foot, inside and outside and things like that. Things have changed drastically in lighting. That's nothing that's in the plans now, but things are evolving, things are changing. And as the club, we do want to be good neighbors, and we want to help in any way we can.
Thank you, Mr. Routs. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and city, please.
Deb Rhodes, Cedar Falls. I have nothing prepared and I have very little to say, but I just want to say basically that Orchard Hill Park's been there for a long time. And I play pickleball occasionally, not so much anymore. But when I've been at the courts, when the kids are out for recess, that noise comes all the way down where the pickleball courts are. And it's pretty loud. It's as loud as the pickleball is at times. And it's a different kind of sound, and it's happy, just like pickleball is happy and enthusiastic. It's fun. And I just think that pickleball offers so much to so many people. It's inclusive, all ages can play together, all abilities can play to some degree or another. Some people can just play dinking games where you just hit it softly. But it's just a healthy activity, and socially, in physical fitness. It's just a very fun game, and I think it benefits a lot of people. And I do have, my heart goes out to the people who have to deal with the noise. So I know that the club is trying to work on that, and I think that the city has said that sound barriers will be part of the plan. So I did hear just today from someone who had spent some time at a home that borders the parking lot and who recently put up a fence, and that the sound within the backyard with the fence really was very minimal. So I think there's some things that can be done to address the noise, but I think that it is a factor, but I'm just hoping the project will go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move to look for a resolution approving and adopting the plan, specifications, form of contract, estimate of cost for the Orchard Hill Pickleball Court Expansion Project.
So move.
Second.
1 second. So motion second. Kevin, do you have some?
Just wanted to close the hearing.
Okay. So yes, we will close the public hearing and we'll move to the motion. So it's been motioned and seconded and open to council discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead.
Councilman Lott.
I'm hoping that Mr. Soppe can maybe respond to some of the concerns that have been identified. Are there plans to have designated hours for this facility? What is the lighting plan, and what type of sound study has or hasn't been completed?
Sure. As of now, there are no plans for lights that I've seen or know of. That's a rumor maybe that went around. Or as far as the sound, we are wanting to be good neighbors too. So we are talking about putting a live fence in on the west boundary, which would be some dense trees or some shrubs or some tall bushes or something along those lines just west of the detention basin. We've talked about the acoustic fence that Kathy mentioned. We've talked about the windscreens on their help already, but we talked about on the west side putting up the wind slats and the windscreens. The reason the slats aren't popular is because they're not good for visibility, so when people come out to watch, it makes it a little bit difficult. But on the west side there, there'll be plenty of opportunity to watch. You wouldn't need it on the west side because that's where the detention basin's going to be anywhere. What other concerns were you inquiring about?
I'm looking at this on the map right now. I'm trying to orient myself to specifically where this is. So as I'm looking at the layout of the park now, I'm looking at tennis courts and a ball diamond. Where are we at here in proximity?
So if you see the existing courts, the shelter will be in between the existing courts and the new courts. There were 2 tennis courts there that just about had the exact same footprint. Those were past its life expectancy. They were no longer safe. The city felt they needed to come out. We did partner with UNI and Cedar Falls High School on the 19th Street and campus courts. There's 9 courts up there. Just to give you some proximity, those courts are actually closer to residents than these would be. And they do play pickleball there and tennis. UNI plays their tennis there. Cedar Falls High School plays their tennis there. The pickleball isn't as popular there as it is at Orchard Hill because it is such a community. But there are people that go there to play pickleball as well.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Dunn.
What about the question with the detention pond, or basin, I should say? Is that?
I can probably take that.
Sure, yeah.
So the park never used to have any stormwater detention. It was just surface runoff. So as part of this project with the impervious area, we decided it would be a good idea to follow the city's stormwater management plan, put in a detention basin, which will store the 100-year volume. It will not have water stored in it at all periods of time, maybe for a short period of time during an intense rainfall, but it will be a dry basin.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess some of my questions have been answered. Obviously, there's a concern for the noise, and I can appreciate that. I guess I was kind of the conversation with the pickleball club for the last, I don't know, a couple years has been a great conversation. I feel like they're, and I feel like from the conversations from both sides, I think you, even though you may not agree totally with each other, I think there's a respect amongst you folks, and I respect that. I guess we hear you, and this is the point of the public hearing, is so we can be together and hear your concerns. It sounds like you've heard each other. It sounds like staff has heard. I agree with, is it Ms. Rhodes? I agree. Like, it's, first, when I think of a park, we have so many discussions about parks because people want access to, in their neighborhoods, to parks. And so I can respect the want of not in my backyard, but I also want kids and everyone to be able to have access to those parks. Being active and am I still on? Being active and able to be out, and I mean, it's good for your physical health, but almost more importantly to me, it's great for your mental health. So I do hear your concerns. I'm excited for this project. I feel comfortable that we're all aware of the concern of noise and that we'll continue to work, if this passes, to be the best neighbors we can be for each other.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunn.
Mr. Mayor, I think I'll be speaking extemporaneously on this, but when I saw the Courier write-up that it was $489 million, I lost my mind. Thought there's no way. But lucky Andy, I'm just digging at you. No pun intended, digging at Andy. But all right, I do like the pickleball sport. I am concerned that if we all had our crystal ball, we'd be looking at this and maybe this is a bit of a fad. Even at $489,000, that's a huge spend. I know we talk about wanting to support this a little bit more, but I kind of wonder if there's a way that we can hear the residents and respond to their concerns. For example, why don't we put in a berm with some of those dense vegetation, trees and/or screening fences with the existing pickleball courts? Do a noise study beforehand, put in those improvements, and then put a noise study in after the fact so that we can vet our proposal and see if that's actually going to help the residents. I do understand there's one on the university. I've played there myself, and there's nobody there. When I was playing, one anecdotal observation, Orchard Hill Park is always full. Parking lot is always full. Some of the overflow concerns are a very real concern. Happened to visit a friend of mine on Orchard, and on Orchard, you're a block and a half away, and you can still hear the dinking clear as day through mature trees. So I hesitate to believe that the fences are going to mitigate all of the noise. And I got to admit, if it's a perpetual rhythmic annoyance, you're never going to see it as anything other than that. And you can't mitigate that in this situation entirely. I'm not convinced it's the best location, so perhaps as a compromise, we could either continue this till we can figure out if a noise study is warranted. Because I am concerned. I don't know, distance-wise, I think it's like 50 decibels we're supposed to make sure that you can't do in a residential, and this is an R1 district, so recreational things are obviously allowed there, but this is a new in the last several years that we haven't studied enough to say, yes, let's go ahead and spend $500,000 on doubling the noise volume. We heard 0 public comment on our entire budget, and we've heard from several residents on this one. So I have a little more concern. I understand that there is some NIMBYism here. That's not in my backyard. People don't come out until it affects them, but I appreciate you guys being here. And rather than just saying we've heard you, I'd like us to do a noise study. So what timetable might we have, Mr. Soppe, on some noise study to say these are the limits that we've actually observed at the property lines to find out whether the complaint is, for lack of a better term, justified? And then what might that timetable look like for us to plant some trees in what we already own? Do you have a couple answers there?
Yeah, the noise study I'd have to look into. I've done some research into decibels and what pickleball levels are at, what playground levels are at, and pickleball, like was mentioned, is way under a playground. So if we put a playground in this park, it would be at 90 decibels. If we put a pickleball complex in here, it's at 70, and that's before we would do any of the, sound prohibitors. So to get that down to 50, I think is realistic. What was your second part?
Just the timetable on putting in some vegetation.
Yeah, that could be done, this summer with construction. It was talked about these aren't going to open until, school gets back into session, which gives us plenty of opportunity to plant trees in there, and I know that is the plan.
I know there's like 40 grand in grass seed alone. There's no line item in here for vegetative shrubbery. What would be the prospective cost on that?
Sure, and just to touch on that budget a little bit, Public Works is looking into that and seeing what we can do in-house to save money.
Okay.
We just budgeted conservative. Yeah, the Public Works has a hydro seeder, and they talked about that, whether we're going to take trees out of the nursery at Public Works or, get some specialty trees, shrubs into that. That is in the original plan. And just to point out, too, that the Pickleball Club did raise 40% of the funds for this project, so it isn't completely coming out of the city budget.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Schultz.
So I'm at that, since Mr. Soppe took one of my racquetball courts away, I've been reduced to playing more pickleball than racquetball, and I am a fan. I'm with Mr. Ganfield on the money, and are we really married to this location? I also want to point out that, might not hit the decibel level, but it's the sound, not noise. Sound is the differentiation between what's going to be heard. So it's not necessarily that it's above 85 decibels. There it is, the annoyance of that, right? I appreciate the club, I appreciate the game, but I wouldn't be in favor of this right now, with also some other opportunities with the Parks Master Plan and some locations that we have property that maybe should be in consideration. That, can I say the name of the place?
No idea what you're talking about.
Cedar City. We've got all kinds of land out here, and there's opportunity there, and we're going to have more people there throughout the use of the river project. That is going to be coming on board, so, and is some technology that maybe we can expand this and get some things reduced on sound. But we're also married to, now you're going to be landlocked. And if we start talking about the future where if we do have competitive tournaments, but we don't have an indoor place, well, is there somewhere else that we maybe can expand with an indoor place? So for now, I'd be in favor of doing some further investigation of the overall project, different locations, sound editing, and the sorts. But that's it for me.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Chrisman.
As a person who has helped to raise money for a park, I'm sure that the many pickleball folks that are watching this right now are real nervous because you put a lot of work into something and then in the last minute, you know, it gets a little scary to hear this conversation. So, you know, I feel very torn because I know how hard it can be to, you know, it's your home and that's a big investment and you know, to not have the heads up or just feel like you don't have the heads up is tough. And, you know, I'm sure that the folks who have been a part of this planning process have had, you know, been able to see a lot more information. And when you're not a part of the planning process, and sometimes even when you are, you're still not really in the loop. So I'm wondering, Director Schrage, are there other locations that this could go? Has that been, Mike, has that been either of you?
Sure, I'll take that one. You know, we did look at Cedar City. The problem with Cedar City is we can't put up any permanent fencing in Cedar City because of the floodplain restrictions and whatnot, and to play pickleball with no fences would be hard. Just to touch on the timeline, because we do have some newer council. This project started back in July 2022. In August, we partnered with the Pickleball Club to take on some of the design, layout, and fundraising aspects of the project. In September, it was presented to the city goal sessions for a possible CIP item. The plan to move this project up was placed by that council on the Pickleball Club. If you could come up with $200,000 of private fundraising, we would move this project forward. So in October, we took it to the Park and Rec Commission meeting, October 2022. On October 13th, it was approved unanimously and then presented as a council meeting as a possible capital improvements plan. November, it was discussed and approved at goal setting as an item to include in the budget. January 17th, 2023, council approved and adopted the CIP, which included the pickleball expansion. The Pickleball Club started their fundraising campaign, started going after grants, which they received many grants for this project. April 2023, we had a design layout put together. We sent out invitations for a neighborhood meeting in May. In May 2023, the regular Park and Rec Commission meeting was in Orchard Hill Park. Channel 7, Channel 9, the Courier was there. All were invited to attend and help cover the project. Questions were asked and answered by neighbors, the public, the commission, and staff. June, the following month at the Park and Rec Commission meeting again, more work and research into the development was asked by the staff, by the commission. The city looked into sound dampening materials as well as tree and bushes being planted to help offset some of the sound concerns brought up at the May meeting. July 2023, more discussions were had at the regular Park and Rec Commission meeting with the recommendation to stay with the original plan that was approved in October while including the updated sound prevention proposals. August 11th, a council update was sent out detailing the timeline of the project as well as the scope and estimated cost. The city asked the Pickleball Club for a bigger contribution to help offset some of the increased costs of the projects. September 2023, a check for $225,000 was presented to the city on behalf of the Pickleball Club. Once the city received the check, the project was started. September 5th, council approved contract to build the new shelter. October 2023, the new shelter was installed with a lot of the concrete pads and sidewalks surrounding. Winter, the old shelter was removed. Parking lot preparations occurred. Now we're in the spring of 2024. We're planning on the parking lot expansion, which is just another step in this whole process that has been looked at for several years now. And what's approved or what's on the council tonight is the actual meat and potatoes and estimated costs of the project. And hopefully, you know, that summer or this summer, that project takes off and is completed by the end. Because as it's touched on, it is a need right now. We have a lot of people playing out there. We don't have enough courts. There's a lot of families that come out to play, which is absolutely phenomenal. That's my goal as a manager of recreation, is to fill the parks. We have the opportunity to do that, and I know that causes concerns with too much traffic. That's why we're putting in a bigger parking lot. It's going to meet some of our ADA requirements, which we currently do not have right now. So this has been looked at for over 2 years and discussed every other which way we can, and we will take council's recommendation, but I just wanted to point out there has been a lot of due diligence in this project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You, Mike. Any other council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Lella.
would it be appropriate to ask if there's anybody from the Pickle Club that could speak to whether or not any of the grant funding they've already procured would be at risk if we delay this?
If council's okay with that.
Our treasurer, who kind of handles that stuff, is actually not here tonight. He had to be up in Rochester for a physical and some things, so he's not here. We had grants from 3 grants. I'm sorry, I can't tell you who they all were. Max and Helen Guernsey, I believe, possibly McElroy,
Community Foundation.
and possibly Ella Round Trust. I'm not sure of all of them. We couldn't go to the Blackhawk Gaming Commission. They had contributed a bunch in the past, and they asked that we not come to them. But I can't speak to whether or not they would be withdrawn. I would be surprised. Within the club, we're really working to introduce the sport to younger kids, and that was part of I think the McElroy Trust. I think that was kind of anybody that kind of had not really restrictions, but hopes. So I don't think the grants would go away. I think they've already been donated. I don't think they would ask for them back.
Great, thanks.
The city.
Council's okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
The grants that we've received is really a very minimal part of what our club has raised. There's a lot of people that have given generously to this project. And Mike knows probably as much as a lot of other people, but there are a lot of people that have really stretched their budget because this is really important to the club. We have, I don't know, maybe 450 people in the club now. And they don't all play regularly, but it's a very enthusiastic club. As you probably know, we've been at a lot of these meetings. But that's just what I was going to say, is that the grants have been wonderful, and the people who have written those grants were very appreciative of that money, and the people who are requesting it. But the membership has given a lot of money for this project. So, thank you.
Ms. Rose.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Councilman Hoppeker.
Thank you. You know, it's a difficult topic, but the things that I appreciate, first of all, is how long it's been in the works and the amount of planning that's gone into it. The addition of the retention basin, I think, is important to that area. A lot of thought has gone into traffic and the expansion of the parking lot. Ms. Councilmember Chrisman, help with the parks. I live across the street from a park. And the reality is it's a public park. There's noise. There are events over there that I have no control over. It's just a reality of where I live. Varying levels of noise, depending on what event's going out over there. It could be music to some. There could be a lot of people over there. There's student organizations and things like that that utilize Dearly Park, which is where I live across the street from. The difficulty with those challenges is I can't put a sound barrier around the park to shield myself. the benefit of the pickleball parks, as I see it, there's the courts, at least there are relatively easy things that we can do to mitigate the noise from the parks, unlike the general noise from a park. I think it appears to me that there's already been a substantial amount of community investment in this, with the expectation that over these last couple of years we've been following through. I do think we will always be good neighbors to both the city and the club to those that live in that neighborhood. I trust in that. I think the mitigation efforts can be ongoing and the technology will get better. And so overall, I'm in favor of the benefit that the sport brings to the community, that it attracts many different people of abilities and ages. I like to see its expansion. And we do have a lot of mature parks in mature neighborhoods. So overall, I'm in favor of the project.
Thank you, Councilmember Hotbaker. Additional discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Thank you. I think it's just good to note, I've heard nothing but good things about Mr. Soppy's leadership, and I trust those recommendations, and the recommendations we've made will also be followed through on, so I am a little bit torn as well. Huge supporter of the wellness that pickleball brings to some people that might not be out and sporting if it weren't for the sport, so I appreciate that. I also consider the planning that went into the home purchases for the neighbors that were there. Their planning of years, in many cases, of what they wanted to do with their own property is something that weighs heavily with me. So I see both sides of this, and I think it is a good thing for our community. I'd like to make sure that we follow through with any of those possible improvements. Keep our keen ear aware of those technological advancements that will help us mitigate this further.
Thank you, Councilmember Ganfield.
Yeah, I
Councilmember
would
Schultz.
say the information based on what the history of this all has been and the responsibilities of the future of not just saying, well, we'll try some trees or we'll try some barriers, that we actually follow up on the concerns of the neighbors. I don't think we really addressed the two-way traffic widening that street, or if we were going to have to take more trees out. Do you know if that's something that is going to be occurring? Are we going to take out some more trees? Or?
So the existing driveway width is not adequate for two-way traffic. It's a short driveway entrance on the north side of the park. I believe it's around 15 to 16 feet wide, and it'll be going to 21. So it's really 2 feet on either side, and no trees impacted as far as the widening of the driveway portion.
Mr. Mayor. So Director Schrage, will that be easement purchases from the Ubens and the Larsons?
No,
Or
there's
just
existing right-of-way there.
Within the existing right-of-way,
Correct.
but it'll expand, some of the grass will be removed?
Correct.
Okay, so no property purchases are pending? Okay.
Any, any additional conversation from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cruz.
I'm a little bit curious on the screening and trees and that sort of thing. We can install them, and I can think of like University Avenue had some really marvelous trees that through the drought years have died, and I don't know, is there a maintenance pool of money generated to keep the trees alive, make sure that they grow to maturity and beyond and really make a barrier? How's that handled in our parks?
Yeah, I mean, any new tree is susceptible to damage, and a lot of what you see on maybe a roadway project in the median is salt damage early in the spring from the winter. But yes, any trees in the park, we'll continue to water them. Generally, there's a warranty with the tree, but we do our best. There is a survival rate of, generally, we always say you'll lose 25 to 30% of any tree. I mean, it's a living organism, so we do our best. So.
Thank you, Chase. Any additional questions, conversation with council? All right, seeing none, then we have a motion and a second for a resolution approving and adopting the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Orchard Hill Pickleball Court expansion project, and this does require a roll call vote, please.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion does pass. So we will now move on to old business, and we've got several ordinances here. If you guys remember, we had quite a few that are cleaning up the ordinances, so we'll work through these. So first one, pass ordinance number 3051, amending Chapter 26, zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to the city's floodplain regulations upon its third and final consideration.
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded, and roll call vote, please.
Don't mind me.
Oh, sorry.
Let's click submit. Two-step.
I thought I did.
All members voting aye. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. Item number 5, pass ordinance number 3052, adopting the Code of Ordinances for the City of Cedar Falls upon its third and final consideration. Do you have a motion? It's been motioned.
Second.
And seconded. And roll call vote, please.
Oops, my bad, sorry.
There we go. I had to wait for it to get open.
I did it. I did it.
All members voting aye. Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yes, thank you. Real quick, because again, I forgot to have the public comment. Is there any public comment on items number 4 or 5? All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 6, pass ordinance number 3053, amending Chapter 23, Traffic and Motor Vehicle of the Code of Ordinances relative to the speed limit on certain portions of Center Street upon its third and final consideration. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
And second, and any public comment on this item? Any council discussion on this? Oh, Ms. Suchi. Just name and city, please.
Mark Suchi, Cedar Falls. I live up in the North Cedar area. I'm the one who kind of came in and suggested this, and I really appreciate you guys taking this under consideration. And it really isn't that much. It's 5 city blocks, but I think it'll provide a consistency of driving down Center Street from Clare to Lone Tree Road. The 2 blocks on the north end, it doesn't make sense for people to speed up for a block and then have to slow down again. And then it'll give more consistency to the school zone coming from the south. And you know, this year, the Cedar Falls Historical Society is going to showcase the North Cedar area. So we probably will have more people driving down to look at the Natural Resource Project and Cottage Row and stuff like that. And the slower speed will help them to maybe enjoy what North Cedar has to offer. And I drove it. There's like 14 seconds of difference from the speed it is now. And that isn't that much. And I think, but sometime in our life, have you ever had a moment where you were driving and going to pull out into traffic and a second made a difference that you didn't run into somebody, or 2 seconds? You know, it's like, oh, wow, I almost ran into that guy. And maybe on them 14 seconds, a couple seconds will make a difference from somebody coming out of the family restaurant or out of Casey's General Store or out of Mary Lou's or something. And the one thing I would ask, that if this passes and we do change the limit, that the city, the police department puts one of the trailers, that the radar trailer that tells people how fast they're going. Because if you change the speed limit right real quick, a lot of people aren't going to know what's happening. To put one of those out there right away, especially on the south end, like by Clare Street, to let people know that the speed limit has changed to 25 miles an hour, and leave it there for a while so people get used to it. It isn't like, it's not a bombshell to them that, and they're aware of it, and let them get used to driving that speed, because it's not that hard. I try to drive 20. It's hard to drive 25 sometimes. I think we all can say that. But if you get used to doing it, it'll be all right. Not everybody's going to do it, but more people we get to do it, that would be a good thing. So I just want to thank you all, and thanks for thinking of North Cedar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suchi. Any more public comment on that? Yep. Just name and city, please.
Ramona Suchi in Cedar Falls, and I believe that the 35 limit on Center Street has served us just fine, and it's a main connecting road, so I would like to see it stay at 35. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Suchi. All right, any other public comment on this item? And seeing none, council discussion.
I just wanted to clarify, that is the Historic Preservation Commission that's putting on the tour. And so that's one of our commissions, and we appreciate the work that they're doing. This will be their third neighborhood tour. They're a great time, highly recommend. So look for more information about that coming soon.
Thank you, Councilmember Chrisman. Any additional council discussion? Otherwise, we've got a motion and a second for, just to repeat, pass ordinance number 3053, amending Chapter 23, Traffic and Motor Vehicle of the Code of Ordinances relative to the speed limit on certain portions of Center Street upon its third and final consideration. And a roll call vote, please. You would have.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. And now move to item number 7, pass ordinance number 3054, amending Chapter 17, Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Art and Culture Center and Board upon its second consideration. Do we have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
And seconded. And any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council discussion? Also seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. Item number 8, pass ordinance number 3055, amending Chapter 17, Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Visitors and Tourism Board upon its second consideration. To a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And seconded. And any public comment? Any from council? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. And item number 9, pass ordinance number 3056, amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinance relative to the boards and commissions and Department of Community Development upon its second consideration. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
The second. And any public comment? Seeing none, any council comment? Also seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. And item number 10, pass ordinance number 3057, amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Department of Community Development upon its second consideration. Motion to approve.
So moved.
And seconded.
Second.
And any public comment? Seeing none, any council discussion? And also seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. We'll now move on to the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the consent calendar to be considered separately from the council? And any from the public? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to approve items number 11 through 14 of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. And any council discussion? And any public comments, please? Seeing none, we'll look for a voice vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes. We'll now move to the resolution calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the resolution calendar to be considered separately from council? Or any from the public, please? Seeing none, look for a motion to approve items 15 through 24 of the resolution calendar.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any public comment on this item? And any discussion from council? I was seeing none. This requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. Move on to ordinances. Item number 25, to pass an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinances relative to compensation of Division 6, Utilities Board of Trustees upon its first consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded. And any public comment on this item? I believe we do have representatives from CFU here if anybody does have any questions. So seeing no public comment, any questions from council or discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Lott.
I'm just appreciative that Mr. Bernard brought this forward. Looks like it's been 10 years since we've looked at this rate of pay, and I think we saw in the last council what waiting that long can do when it comes down to trying to adjust compensation. So I'm glad to see that we built CPI into this as well as an annual. So I think this is a great move for that Board of Trustees that has an immense amount of knowledge that most of us up here probably don't possess. So thanks to that group.
Thank you, Councilmember Latta. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, we require a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. We'll move on to item number 26, allow bills and claims from April 15, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And second, and roll call, excuse me, any public discussion on this item? And any discussion from council? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please. Should probably have.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. Any council updates or announcements?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just because this is our last April meeting, and I think this city has done a great job the last few years really celebrating Earth Day, Earth Month, however you want to do it. And our communications director, Amanda Huseman, has done a great job of kind of collecting all those events that might be going on in different neighborhoods and putting them in one spot. I see them on social media on Facebook, but I know you can access them, I believe, on the city website. Also, I don't know if I'm stepping on Director Schraggy's toes, but there are the blue garbage bags available through Public Works at different sites, including City Hall, the Rec Center, the Hearst Center, Public Works Building, the transfer station. Did I get them all?
Pretty much, yep.
Okay, and there's also information about if you do choose to partake even on your own and do a, walk around your neighborhood and do some cleaning up of the garbage that seems to be everywhere after the winter time. There are different parks listed that you can take them to, and Public Works will come get those. So I thank the city staff for helping all of us to, clean up our town. I think it shows a great deal of pride, and anything that can be done to ease the burden. Also, thanks to the neighborhoods and the different organizations in our community, our staff, anyone who's gone out and done that work. I don't know, it kind of makes your heart swell with a little bit of pride when you see people out, doing something that they don't necessarily have to do, and it just makes such a big difference. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, and again, I don't want to step on toes, but I'm probably the biggest fan, is the new podcast that you guys, that you and Administrator Gaines and Amanda have been doing. It's every, a couple times a month?
Yeah, every other week.
Okay. It's great. It's very, has a great information. One of my favorite topics was when you guys broke down the budget in a little more simple-ish terms. So big fan. Keep it up. And I just want, it's called Hello Cedar Falls.
Yep.
It can be found on Spotify, or you can click on the city website and find it there as well. Great information. So kudos to all of that.
And Councilmember Dunn. And quick, also for Earth Week, just so they're also repeat, if any organizations or groups have areas they'd like to clean up, you can reach out to city staff. We can get you the blue bags, anything you need to do the cleanup. So our goal is just to make sure we help empower the community to be able to clean up everything as much as they can. We'll have staff out, a volunteer day for staff next Tuesday, or I think next Tuesday we'll be out doing some cleanup. So,
and don't forget to take a picture and tag us on social media.
Yes. Always take pictures and tag on social media. And shout out to Nadia Patel, the Monarch Club at Cedar Falls High School. They've been working closely with staff and doing native plantings with a lot of milkweed to create some monarch areas and some of the parks, city facilities. So they've done a really good job. We'll be doing the Mayor's Monarch Challenge this year, which staff was already doing a lot of the checklist items we needed to do to be in that. So we'll also be listed as long as a tree city and a bird friendly city. We'll also be listed as a monarch friendly city. So thank you to staff for all the work you do on that. And any other council announcements? Seeing none, We don't have any council referrals submitted. Any pressing referrals? Seeing none, then we'll look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.